The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Chris Lee. Chris is the CEO and co-founder at Biobox Analytics. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, JP.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Chris, let's start with a bit of background of yourself. Can you give us an overview of your journey in tech, from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and take us up to the idea behind Biobox?
So my journey in tech really began coming out of graduate school. At the time in grad school, I was studying pediatric brain tumors, and part of my research focused on next generation sequencing, which is a new type of data. It's all computational. And what I was trying to do is find systems that have gone awry that leads to these diseases. Now, through that, I got exposed with programming, with learning how to build tools, learning how to work with all different types of tools in the space. And that really inspired a passion in myself for coding. I didn't really know I had that kind of interest in it until I got my hands wet with it. And since then, I've been really focused in developing software tools. And through that experience, I actually wanted to train and learn how to work in a large software team. So I participated as a research and data engineer for a local startup here that was working in AI development for digital health tools. And after some time through research, I realized that there was an opportunity for us to develop software that can dramatically accelerate life sciences research. And part of that inspiration came from observing some challenges that we faced in the field as scientists. And leading up to the idea of Biobox, there is this missing kind of bridge between biology and genomics research, which is that biologists don't really know how to code. But they need to leverage programming tools to get the job done. And so myself and my now co-founders at the time were those kind of computational teams in the labs. And we realized that we can actually automate a lot of these solutions and provide the tools to the scientists and bring the autonomy back for the scientists to be able to conduct these analyses on their own. Fast forward a couple months later, after the idea came to be, we created Biobox Analytics together, and we've been running with that ever since.
Thank you for the background. It's great to hear of how the idea came to be and then the decision to launch the platform yourself. So to summarize, what is the mission of Biobox, and then walk us through some of the early stages of the forming of the company and the journey?
Yeah, so at Biobox, our mission primarily is to accelerate life sciences by building an end-to-end data analysis platform for scientists working with genomic data. In the early stages of the company, we knew that we wanted to be able to process large amounts of this genomic data. These are gigantic data files. We needed to figure out how to operate these pipelines in the cloud and running kind of cloud native service, and also how to index and be able to analyze this data effectively, because we're building a web-based platform. So in the early days, we were in stealth for about a year, almost a year and a half, just building the foundations. We didn't realize how hard it was until we actually started building it, and I think as most things. And we bootstrapped the entire thing in the very beginning. We were working out of my apartment, me and my co-founders, all cramped up in a one-bedroom apartment. But in the early days, we had great support from our ecosystem, from some of the incubators out of University of Toronto, and also our colleagues and peers in the research space who became our early adopter power users. And we, after solving some roadblocks, especially around with cloud processing, being able to operate fully cloud native, we wanted to make use of the abundance of data that we have available. The scientific community had been generating vast amounts of data in this space, and largely they become untapped. And this is when the ideas of, okay, how do we operationalize these things? How do we get the most out of the data, and how do we provide it in a useful and meaningful way for scientists. And that's when we started to develop some, at the time, very primitive kind of ML solutions that can, let's say, enhance the scientists' ability to evaluate and explore their data alongside with all the data that's available in the public domain.
Chris, can you tell me about some of the challenges in scientific research and how Biobox is a solution for these challenges with the crossover of scientific information, the research, and then using technology to help amplify the results?
Today, we live in this post-genomics era in research where next generation sequencing, or sequencing technologies in general, have transformed the way that we do life sciences research and healthcare and approach to personalized medicine, et cetera. Now, with this next generation sequencing, we're able to interrogate lots and lots of different data points, and we're generating tons and tons of information, but we need a way to be able to process this. To that end, there's this whole new field of computational biology, bioinformatics, that is solely there to analyze this type of data. Though the scientists that are conducting the research, they have years of biology training, medical training, but at the core of it, they're not programmers. And so if you're asking a scientist to be like, I know you want to be able to figure out what's going on in your research, but you're going to have to learn how to write Python or work in the command line. These are things that are barriers, these technical barriers to enter. And even if you have those skills, maybe you pick them up and sort of self-taught, you still need the infrastructure to operate these giant pipelines. You need to handle with where you're storing your data. How do you configure your pipelines? How do you get the information back out? How do you then do the post-processing? All of these details are roadblocks. And this is fundamentally the main challenge right now with next generation sequencing in scientific research. And where Biobox came in, and the whole idea of Biobox, is to provide the scientists with an easy to use, user-friendly, no-code environment for them to get the job done. They upload their data into the platform, process the data in the cloud. The data gets indexed and organized for them, and then they can do any kind of post-processing they want. They can do any kind of analysis, and we cover the entire end-to-end process for their research journey.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
Chris, how does Biobox integrate aspects of AI into the Biobox platform? And part two of that question, how will this improve the way scientists interface and explore aspects of their research? So just broadly speaking, where does AI fit into the mix?
Yeah, so with respect to the platform and how we leverage AI, what we provide for the scientists right now is an ability to perform unsupervised learning methods on their data. So in a given research data set, you have a lot of information and you're trying to find features. So for example, let's say I have a set of 1,000 patients and I have their list of mutations. Perhaps you want to say, okay, given my 1,000 patients, what variants or mutations can I cluster my 1,000 patients into? Perhaps these different clusters have different responses to therapy. Perhaps this is a means for us to interrogate new modes of treatment, those kind of things. But without the tooling, without knowing how to program or operate in statistical languages like R, Python, those kind of things, it's very hard for scientists to perform these techniques. And with the amount of data that is available in the public domain, and also with the amount of data that a scientist will generate over the course of their research project, that opens up a lot of possibilities for us to apply additional kind of machine learning practices to it. At the end of the day, ML requires a lot of data. And for the first time I think in the past maybe 5 to 10 years, it's become cheaper and cheaper to generate sequencing data, which makes machine learning applications more and more possible in this space. So what we provide for the scientists right now that are on the platform is to be able to compute these kind of things without having to write any code, We provide them an interface to tweak parameters, to try things out, explore their data using different types of unsupervised learning paradigms.
Thanks, Chris. So staying on the topic of the engineering and data science behind the scenes at Biobox, I want to now get some insight into the team, what it takes to get the platform to where it is, what the engineering and data science team currently looks like, and what a typical project is like for them day to day, week to week.
Yeah, so the core makeup of the team, there's 3 of us on the technical side. And typically how we work is we look to support let's say a new algorithm. Maybe we want to provide k-means, or maybe we want to provide a way for people to perform T-SNE tests or build self-organizing maps on their data. So from there, we got to figure out, okay, how do we build the front end for it so it's intuitive, it's easy to work with? And then we think about, okay, with the data coming through, where do we analyze it? So what workflows do we need to build? What algorithms do we need to incorporate into our libraries? And ultimately, when those observations come back, where are they stored? How do we make sure that we can retrieve them quickly? How do we make sure that how we can index that information and make it available on demand and allow users to iterate, to be able to change parameters and variables quickly and get feedback quickly as they explore their data? So typically how that would work is for our team, myself and my 2 co-founders, we figure out what's the backend look like, what are the inputs the user needs to provide, and how do we make sure that the users know where to find the correct parameters and how to make choices about how they want to explore their data.
Thanks, Chris. Given the growing demand for technology like this, Biobox is obviously well positioned to service the scientific field, and given your background in that field, you're already well networked and there's an increased demand for what you're doing. Can you give us some insight then into what the next year to 2 years look like for Biobox, some milestones that you guys are working towards, and with that, what growth is expected from a headcount perspective?
So for us right now, we're hitting a point where we need to be able to bring on features more and more quickly. Our clients that we have right now are really supportive and actually bring a lot of new ideas to the table for how scientists want to be able to work with their data. Now, to that end, obviously, we need to expand our engineering team. So we're looking to grow our team about 2 to 3 times in terms of engineering staff. And we're looking to find data scientists and obviously computational biologists to support that front.
Excellent. Chris, final question from me then. When you look at 2022 and beyond, what are you most excited about for the future of Biobox and the impact it can have on the industry?
Yeah, so what we're really looking forward to is to start supporting additional kind of different types of labs onto our platform. And part of that is obviously we need to increase the team size so we can pump out these features faster. And where we want to see Biobox in the future is be able to just get this in the hands of every scientist who's working with sequencing data, and to support some new like cutting edge techniques like single cell technology that really opens up the doors to even more different ways that we can apply machine learning methods into sequencing analysis.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate you sharing the backstory behind Biobox, talking about the product itself, why it's so desperately needed within scientific research, and looking ahead, what's exciting about the future for your industry, for Biobox, and how it can help scientists and their research. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at Biobox the best of luck in the years ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us on.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.